All right, CJ Math students, welcome to Notes 2.20 Part 2. Let's take a look at number 3. You have -5 times -6. And if you remember, your options are different signs negative and same signs positive for when you're multiplying, right? And obviously this is a same signs positive. It is not an SSAK because that has to do with addition, right? Not multiplication. So these are same signs. So therefore it is positive 30, right? You're going to have to learn to switch back and forth through the rules in your head. This would give you something like different signs negative. This is somebody accidentally said, oh, same signs add keep, right? And not a real number is just not an option. Finally, for number 4 here, this is saying -4 times some number that we don't know, x, will give us 28. So let's think about it. Our answer is positive, and one of our numbers is negative. So to get a positive answer, we have to have same signs, right? So it has to be -4 times what number will give us 28? Well, that's -7. So your answer in that case is D. It's not A because this would give you -28, and you want a positive 28. It's not 0 because it was obviously give you 0, and it's not 24 because 4 times 24 is not going to be 28. In fact, even -4 plus 24 it won't be 28. It will be 20. Right? Flip over to the back side. All right, a -2 times a -6 times a -4. Notice you have 3 negatives, an odd amount of negatives. So your answer is going to be negative. So you can automatically say goodbye to A and goodbye to C. Now you could use the commutative property of multiplication and say I want to do 2 times 4 first, and then I want to multiply it by 6. And that's just 8 times 6, which is 48. But remember, you had 3 negatives, so it's got to be -48. So your answer in that case is D. Now let's fill in the blank to make the statement true. So what number divided by 4 will give us -4? Coincidentally, you could think of this as the opposite of division. It could be 4 times -4, right? So 4 times -4 is -16, because remember they're different signs, so negative. So if we think about -16 divided by 4, what does that give us? Gives us -4, right? So D is your answer right there. All right. Now let's move on to some word problems and critical thinking, right? So it says, each time Samantha rides the commuter train, she spends $4 for her fare. So spending money is obviously negative, -4. Write an integer that represents the change in Samantha's money riding the commuter train to and from work for 13 days. So think about it. First, you have to think she's riding this train twice every day, right, to and from work. All right, so, and then we say, all right, she's done it for 13 days, right? So this takes care of how much it costs to get on the train. This takes care of to and from work, and this takes care of how many days that's going to happen. So first of all, our answer is going to be negative. Why? Because she's spending $4 every single time, so it's going to be negative. And then we can use, all right, 4 times 2, that's -8 times 13. And yeah, we might have to do 13 times 8 if we don't know our 8's past 12, and that's 24, carry your 2, that's 10. So she's going to, for those 13 days, it's going to cost her $104, or we write that as -104, right? Are the answers to the 3 questions the same or different? Why or why not? So let's figure this out. What's -14 divided by 7? Well, that's -2. Why? Because that was at different signs. -1 was negative, 1 was positive. What's 14 divided by -7? Oh, well, that's also -2. Why? Again, different signs negative. It doesn't matter that, you know, in this case we had more negatives, or in this case we had more positives, right? That does not matter. That only matters with adding and subtracting. With division, if one of them is negative, with multiplication, if one of them is negative, your answer will be negative. Now let's think about this. There's a negative on the outside, and it says do 14 divided by 7 first. Well, that gives me 2, but now this negative on the outside makes that 2 as well. So even though this is a same signs positive, we had a negative on the outside making this a -2. So yes, all the answers are the same. Okay, now I've made sure that we wrote this down. If there are an even amount of negatives, 2, 4, 6, 8, 0, right, then your answer is always going to be positive. And if there's an odd amount, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, etc., your answer will always be negative. So let's think about this. Is my answer going to be positive or negative for this one? I have 1, 2, 3 negatives. 3 negatives. So my answer should be, it's an odd amount, negative. So what's my answer? Again, you could use a commutative property of multiplication if you wanted to do this. And you could say, hey, I want to do, I don't know, 6 times 5, all right, that's 30. 3 times 2, all right, that's 6, and that's a 1, that's 1, fine. 30 times 6, well, 3 times 6 is 18, just tack on the 0. So that's 180 times 1, okay, that's 180, but I remembered that there were 3 negatives, so it's negative 180. All right, let's do this one. 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 3, right? So answer is going to be 3, but is it going to be positive or negative? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 negatives. It's going to be negative because we have an odd amount of negatives. So it's negative 3. Because 1 times 1 is just 1. This would be negative 1, still negative 1, positive 1, negative 1, positive 1, negative 1, and then negative 1 times 3 gives you negative 3. Right? And then this one right here. This says do 6 times 5 first, which is 30, but then that's a negative 30 times 2 times negative 4. So this is negative 60. Times negative 4 up, and I have 2 negatives, so my answer is going to be positive. 2 negatives, an even amount of negatives, so my answer has got to be positive. 4 times 6 is 24, but tack on a 0, so that's 240. 240. The rest I'm going to have you do an ed puzzle. So this one, and this one, and be very careful with this one right there. All right? So remember, the rules for adding and subtracting are different than multiplying and dividing. In your homework tonight, you're going to have to make sure you remember to switch back and forth through those.